Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, RainierAvenueRadio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're
She looks just like her.
lay at home and chill, no, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
Street Beat with Tony B.
Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community.
Street Beat. Street Beat. Who, Tony?
Dealing with COVID-19 is uncharted territory, and everyone has different challenges. People may feel anxious, down, or overwhelmed. For some, these feelings can lead to changes in sleep patterns, an increased use of alcohol or drugs, or withdrawing from the people around them. If you know someone who's having a hard time coping, you can help by reaching out to talk and listen. To learn more about how you can help someone in need, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK. Brought to you by the state of Washington.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
You're listening to Heartbeat Radio. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. Heartbeat Radio is a conversation aimed to take the pulse of corporate America. Opportunities for people of color, we're getting lost in the shuffle of change. I'm that provocateur of change. The hearts of corporate America are addressed. Access and opportunities will be accelerated for all people. Through Heartbeat Radio, you will gain a deeper understanding of what is necessary for change. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Heartbeat Radio and podcast. In the throes of $5.50 a gallon of gas and traffic patterns changing, I didn't go into the studio today, so I decided to do the show remote. Let's bring Joy in with me tonight because it is Joy and I. Hey, Joy. How are you tonight? I think we still have her on mute. So Joy and I decided, I think we shared this earlier in the year, that we wanted to make sure through the course of Heartbeat that we had an opportunity for just she and I to both talk too about many of the issues that are out there, to be able to speak to it as the voice of Black women. And so while we have guests on all the time, as you all know, all of our listeners, hi Gwen, I just saw you were there. We just decided tonight, you know, there's just a whole slew of things every week that we could talk about. So we decided tonight that we just wanted to talk as girlfriends, as Black women who live out in this world with all these issues happening. We just decided we wanted to talk about those tonight. Joy, welcome back.
Just a few topics. There's so many we could start with, like what did you say, $5? The last time I was at Costco was $4.65 a gallon. It might be more today.
It was $5.17 today, and traffic was horrible today. I was out running around quite a bit today, and you can definitely see workers have been recalled back to office. We can actually start there because I don't know if you engage with people to talk about what's it been like on them being recalled back to the office. Have you had any conversations like that with anybody about what that's like for them?
Just a couple of people. I think more companies are deciding to have some sort of hybrid, which I think is fair, based on the feedback that they're getting from staff. And I think just based on the fact that we have proven during these 2 years, because let's just call it, it's been 2 years,
Mhm.
right? 2020
Mhm.
and 2021. And now we're in 2022. So it's been 2 years that we can still be productive, valuable employees while working from home. Now it's much harder when you have kids at home that are at home learning from home and doing virtual school. It is much harder. Or when you have little ones where the daycare is not open. I want to sympathize with our moms and dads who are having to deal with that. But at the same time, we've proven that folks can be productive and valuable working from home. And I worked for a huge corporation who shall remain nameless for almost 10 years and was told there was no precedent for me to work from home or work closer to my home, which would have been their office in Tacoma, or work from a clinic. And
Mhm.
so there's no precedence. Well, to me, as I look back and reflect now, it wasn't that there was not a precedence. It was that I was a Black woman asking for that opportunity, and they didn't want to grant that. That's my feeling now that I reflect back, and they did not want to grant that.
And so for people who may have just reacted to that comment, I have had, we are yin and yang together, Joy. And so I have had my conversations with people. I had two interesting conversations this week with two Black women about this very topic. Both articulated to me two different, completely different environments that I was in. They both gave me kind of the same story, that it was pretty much a hassle for them to get it approved for them to be 100% remote. So they were both explaining to me their own way. I mean, you and I've talked about this. I was in HR for 30 years, and it's taboo for people to work from home. And so these
Right.
two women was talking to me, and they have pushed back. And Black women are smart because we know we're always under attack or always being monitored or trying to be controlled. And so both of these
Exactly.
women, in their regards, had kept their journals and logs of all the things they were kept track of, all their productivity in a 2-year window, so that when they got pushback, because they knew they were going to get pushback when
Mhm.
they asked for it. And so when they articulate it, because and so the business world has changed, and Black women are specifically pushing for freedom of toxic work environments and pushing
Mhm.
for being paid for results instead of hours in the office in a chair. And people can make strong arguments that they have been way more productive outside of those kind of environments. So it is
Mhm.
going to be interesting to start to pay attention to see what that actually starts to look like longer term.
I really truly believe that you can still have a great organization, because we're talking nonprofits as well as corporations. You can still have a great company, work in some sort of hybrid model. And to be honest, this is one of my first jobs where and I shouldn't say that, not my first job virtual, but my second job virtual. But I can drive to my last job. I couldn't drive to the office. I can't drive to Seattle, but we've met for dinner because it takes me so long to get there, and I don't want to leave at 5 o'clock because it would take me 3 hours to get home. So why not stay and have dinner? But um, having that virtual option or that hybrid option is going to make, I believe, employees feel more valued and make employees want to be more productive. I know I do. There are times where I have to force myself to, like, stop working. You don't have to keep working. But because I'm trusted
What's
and
kind
I feel valued and I feel treated like an adult, I want to do more, you know? So
You're
I
also you're sitting at a senior level inside of an organization now. And I could make a pitch that people who are below, the middle management and below levels who are wanting those opportunities are pretty stressed over because
yes.
what's happening at those levels. Um, Again, I'm not selling books on air tonight, but if you bought my book, you would know that I talk about the fact that from middle management and below, or that's where the problems exist in companies, and so that's where the power and the control, and I'm going to go further and say the abuse is being done to particularly Black women, and so they're having a harder time, I think, negotiating their ability to stay remote because,
Yes.
and especially when they're smart, bright, and productive, because what has happened with us is that because we exhibit this, one woman who was talking to me, one of the two women, is a doctorate level. So she's a threat to a middle management manager that is not a doctorate level. And we know what happens to Black women. And so she was just describing some things to me that I just thought was fascinating to listen to because they are trying to control her. And so control equals abuse and abuse equals departures. And so it's just going to be fascinating to watch how this trend plays itself out. It's just the first or second week of people going back to work. But speaking of,
And I didn't see it like that, Cindy, to be honest with you, back then. Many, I mean, it's been almost 10 years since I worked for that company. I didn't see it as that, as control. I mean, I think I did, but then I was like, why do you need to see the whites of my eyes every single day at 8 o'clock?
what did you see it as?
Favoritism, because that's almost the way they brought it back to me. Like, oh, we can't do that for you, then not do that for other people who live far away. I'm like, other people aren't taking 3 hours to get to work, and other people aren't in sales and need their car and go up and down the I-5 and the 16 and down the I-5 in Thurston County or down the I-5 on the other side of the Hood Canal Bridge. Other people aren't doing that. So let me stay within my territory and end my day. And you could make it a thing that I have to tell you, where am I ending my day? At 3 o'clock, I'm here. I'm ending my day 5 o'clock at Silverdale, Port Orchard, or wherever. Because I was up for that. Like, I'm not gonna, or Tacoma, because there's an office there. There's a sales office there. So when they came back to me, it's like, well, I don't want it to be favoritism, and I don't want to get something that someone else isn't getting. And so I didn't push back. I didn't think I had the ability or the support to push back. Yeah.
Could it be, just to pivot a little bit, in hindsight, when you think back, could it be the same thread as what we just saw go down with Jane Companion and her comments about Venus and Serena? Did you catch that story?
Oh,
could it be the same thread? So if you think about your comments about, they said that they didn't want it to be favoritism, which translates to, if I do a favor for you as a Black person,
then I got to do it for everybody else.
And the everybody are the people that were not accustomed to holding accountable for anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be clear about that, because for them to have to tell their peers or people that look like them, no, it's not a common thing. And they're so used to the programming of the society and the way that they treat us as Black women. It came out in a celebration speech to diminish two very powerful, strong, accomplished Black women without a second thought, because I guarantee you that she is so accustomed to doing that, to centering herself. This is Jane Companion, and not giving credit or support to people who have accomplished something that great. That is a classic corporate behavior that I've seen my entire career.
Wow. I think I was just more floored that I think one black writer said, what else were they going to do but smile? Because had they not, oh, we all know what that would have turned into. This is the
Well,
angry
we're
black
we're
women.
used to. I'm have been guilty of it too, because when you're in an environment that your paycheck is coming from, you can't alienate the people that control your money. And so we're so used to having to smile in the face of aggression, and act like it isn't any big deal. But I could see it in her face the
Oh,
when we could see it in her face
totally.
that
Like,
she
wait a minute. What are you saying? I don't have to, was it I don't have to play with the boys? Is that
guys or something,
play against the guys, but she does? Nice way to center yourself and
Mhm,
you and who you are. And then, like you said, diminish
mhm.
the levels that those two strong, athletic, smart and intelligent women have gotten to. I just
Accomplished.
accomplished. I was floored.
And
I
so
was like,
that
"Woo."
to me, that was so corporate America on display that, I mean, 2 things happened this past week that just had me floored. I haven't released my blog yet about her, I will, but I did do a blog about Kim Kardashian and her mess that she said about if people just worked harder. Did you catch those?
I don't follow her on purpose. Sorry,
Well,
Cindy.
I don't follow her. It was all over the news.
Oh
And
no, I don't pay attention. As soon as they say Kim Kardashian, click, mute. No,
the diminishing comments again,
I
entitled
heard about it. I heard about it.
"Born
Yeah.
into Wealth" and tone deaf to what the lives of BIPOC women are. And so to think that BIPOC people don't work hard when they're
Yeah.
paid 63 cents to the dollars, and everybody we know, I mean, isn't everybody got a gig and a side hustle and then a side hustle? Isn't every
Exactly.
BIPOC mother out there working her tail to the bone to be able to feed her children and to be able to provide for her family while the
And
system?
yes, and still get to basketball games, soccer
Yeah,
games, football games, dance,
yeah.
choir, leadership. Yeah, we're still trying to make all that happen for our kids. And both of us did that as single mothers before we were married, or I said before I was married. For you, you did it as a single mom. And I'm like, come on. Like, first of all, I just was like, did she really say that? And then my husband said, yes, she did. So I was like, this is why I don't pay attention to
But
anything she says. But she doesn't understand that she has wealth already. It was given
she's
to you.
she's typical though. So
Oh
she just
yeah,
verbalized it
yeah,
and without even a blink to it, because that's how they think about us. And so
yeah,
that's the indicative of what is happening in white America, with regards to Black women. And one of the things I had said is like, in my blog, is about, I've paid attention. I pay attention to, in my own circle, I watch a lot of behavior with people, and I watch how they roll. Remember when Dr. Karen Johnson was on our show? Yeah, Carolee, I see the comments about being in the same room with your sister. Yeah. When Dr. Karen was on, and she said, we've studied them forever, and so we know how that actually goes. And I watched on Facebook. I watched the comments. I watched the way they, for example, there's a particular person that I watched how she brands herself as this women empowerment person, but has zero acumen on women of color issues. Wants to pretend that they do, but there's clearly some things that I have heard and seen her say that she doesn't understand them. And so I watched, I look at their background, I look at how they come up and start trying to brand themselves as women empowerment people. And to be a woman empowerer means you must understand all women. And if you're only speaking to an audience of white women and you're giving them techniques and empowerment that don't serve BIPOC women, are you really a woman empowerer, or are you just trying to center yourself in a topic now, in a season of change, where BIPOC women are speaking out, and now you want to be seen and viewed as somebody important and powerful, but you can't represent me.
Right, right. And that's where what do we say? The rubber hits the road is saying you understand what I've been through when you have no idea. And I'm not saying that you always have to have a lived experience, but you have to have been close with some folks and done your own homework around what that lived experience, what those people who have lived experience have gone through.
And another lens on that, this particular person uh, was also a person that got called and asked to go onto Dr. Phil's show. So I paid attention to this because to go speak out on these women's issues. And so I commented on the feed that they should introduce Dr. Phil's show to another white woman who's in San Francisco who actually does this work. And so that woman has been out in the streets, Karen Fleshman, out in the streets in San Francisco. She's been fighting for social justice for all women forever. And instead of, when this opportunity came up, instead of the woman who branded herself this way, punting this opportunity to the woman who we should have propelled into the forefront. We should have allowed Karen in the forefront to speak on these issues because she clearly is the more qualified woman in that regard. But again, culturally, and these are two white women. And so the lack of not learning how to step aside or step back, allowing someone else to shine. And, it's the same thing. It's what Jane Companion was doing. You can't allow other people to shine. You have to try to outdo and one up every time somebody is more successful than you. And I see that as a sign of weakness, not as a sign of power. And so, I don't know, that was just
We've been talking about this for several weeks, though. We've been talking about people stepping aside or people turning around and bringing folks with them. That's just an interesting topic. I was speaking to someone today and I was like, I've sent a couple. Now, granted, my phone was not working for a couple weeks here, 2-3 weeks here, but I sent a couple of text messages to some folks just to let them know I was thinking about them. And I still have not heard back. And I know my text messages have gone through now because my phone is fixed and I got all these text messages back. And
are you saying that you feel ghosted?
I do a little bit. I do. Yeah. And I'm like, I wonder why that is. Like, I'm genuinely from the heart sending you this message because I just want you to know I want to send you positive thoughts, positive vibes, and yeah, nothing. So how do you, if we don't even know how to treat each other on just a friendship level, because I've had friends for 40 something years, shout out to Tamara and Lori and Rena, 40 something years, Veronica, that I can call and we pick up right, boom, or we text just like we've been texting for the last, whatever. If you can't do that with folks who live right here in your own state, right here in your own community, right here in your own region, what does that say? What does that say? How are we going to help each other? How are we going to stick with each other? How are we going to elevate each other? I think I loved what one of our guests that we just had, oh my gosh, the lobbyist, oh my gosh, really, Joy? Paula said when she was on here, where are the receipts? I'm coming back to you with how I can help. Here's what I'm bringing back because I'm going to come back. I went away. I'm going to come back. Boom. Here's what I got. I love that. I love that I can say to someone else, you know what? I got you.
Yeah.
Come go with me to this. Come do this with me.
It's so rare. I was working the majority of the day today. I'm working on a speech because I am doing the keynote at Amazon's women conference here in a couple of weeks. And so the title of my talk is Women in Black. And Women in Black is a political move around the globe towards peace. But I'm breaking it down to women in Black skin. And so I'm going to be talking about this issue that you're talking about, Joy, this lack of sisterhood that we have,
Yes.
this notion that we can't seem to, the society has turned into nothing but a me culture, that it has gotten to the point where it is a very solo system that we're all operating in, and being able to trust and extend a hand and bring other people along is getting to be more difficult, because, you know, you've got the 40-year friends. I have friends. I have
Not here.
Yeah.
Let me just preface that. You came from where I came from, so we both from California, and we came here. Making friends here is totally different. Yes, I do have friends that I have had for many years here, but that is a handful. I am not that kind of person. When I got here, I'm not that kind of person. I have a lot of friends normally, but I live in Washington State now.
You know, I came from military, and so military communities are all very open and community.
Yes.
Because everybody's displaced and everybody's looking for a relationship and family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do miss that about, you know, when I moved here, it just turned off like a light switch, and
it did
to get friends. You know, many of the quote unquote friends I used to have were all part of basketball, because I spent most of my life in gyms across the country. I still have really good friends from basketball.
Football and soccer, so I get it.
That worked out. Business, and I met people here. I mean, obviously my friend Snow, my friend Gwen, I have some really good friends here. But I have a high level of distrust here, because I've just watched how women roll. And so it's ugly to watch, to the degree that women will go to for stuff, for money, for men, for power, for all the things so that's been a tough, that's tough. I mean, I do at moments feel like just putting the covers up over my head and not being out in the world anymore. I mean, I have literally looked at my Social Security numbers to see what do they look like, because it just gets to be overwhelming sometimes,
Can I just retire and go live on an island by myself? Yes. No, but I think when we talk about women and we talk about how we come together and elevate each other, I think it starts there. It starts making friends, and it starts with, I may not talk to you, I may not see you, but you're always in my thoughts, always positive thoughts, and call me whenever you need me. I mean, I think we have that relationship, because we don't talk every day, but we talk a lot. But we could go a whole week without talking to each other. But it's like, I'm not making up stories in my head of what I think. Did I say something? Did I do something?
Yes.
And you never ghost me when I text you. And if you do, it's because you're in a meeting, but you will text me that night, or you'll say, I'll text you tomorrow. I got your message or something. So I think
it feels like respect. And I don't, there's such a lack of respect for people.
Yeah.
So even, I'm a businesswoman, so just trying to navigate bringing in clients and having meetings, and I'm experiencing it right now. I get people asking me to jump through hoops to get stuff done. Can you get me a proposal? Can you get this? I go spend an entire Saturday or Sunday working on that. I submit it, and then I'm ghosted. And so the next thing I know is my proposals are taken, and they're using the content of it, and somebody else is getting the business. And so that's real stuff about what goes on in society around how we treat people. I don't know if it's just unique, the business stuff, to Black women. I tend to think that because we have more acumen around these topics, that our voices are needed, but there's a reluctancy to even want to pay us for our work, or want to dummy us down and expect us to work for next to nothing. And I have recently I've recently done a couple of things that I've made virtually nothing doing it, because, it's the constant issue that I face is visibility for free to get in front of people, and I look at my conversion. Am I able to convert them into another client again? Like, it's ugly. It's an ugly.
Yeah.
It's an ugly
And you
place.
work for yourself. You don't work for an organization or a corporation. You work for yourself, which is 10 times harder, I feel like, for women, particularly women of color and Black women in particular. So that in itself is a whole nother level of hustle,
Yeah.
as they say.
I understand.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about
Yeah.
hustling. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back after the commercials and pick that back up. Be right back.
Half that of the sacks, I favor Black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's Black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's Black. Yo.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, RainierAvenueRadio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Hey, yo, what's good? It's D-Money of Fresh Juice every Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m. Playing new hip-hop and R&B. We got a couple of wonderful guests to talk to you about coming on the March 16th speech of the legendary Arrested Development coming through. Plus, Seattle's own Art Bay will be joining us live in the studio. That's Fresh Juice Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m. Hosted by myself, D-Money, Pint Size Patrol, and ID Yourself. Join us live.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station.
This is Cindi Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio.
This is Paul Thierson, host of Star
This
Time.
is Paul Schneiderman today on the 73rd edition.
Hey,
of Sports
y'all.
and Stuff
Welcome
on
to
Rainier
Travelers
Avenue
Guide to
Radio.
Venus and Mars and Princess Robin.
Yes, no, we do it again.
Your home for information about the impact of the
And amongst many things that difficult about this virus is that it prevents people from gathering.
They're really heartbreaking stories of people who have.
There isn't anyone that isn't impacted.
Shutting our schools down, including all athletic programs.
Your first-hand accounts.
We got here to test, and I'm found out that I was positive.
A lot of people who know me, I'm still the first person they know.
But it was almost like you were patient zero for South Seattle. Your stories of community coming together.
Partner very heavily with Tacoma Urban League, who is doing some amazing work in response.
We're doing things for small businesses. We're giving out loans for small businesses.
And so I think it's very important that we have leaders who feel.
I mean, I cannot tell you we're calling 20, 30, 40 members.
This crisis in our community, we've been working to address it.
Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
DJ Dirty John.
Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey, this is Sergio Cool.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We got you covered. Local impact, global presence.
Broadcast. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our weekly coverage of the impact of communities. Continuation of our series. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again here. And then again, now we are aware of the fact that we are, and more folks listening to that.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
That up in sacks, I favor Black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's Black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's Black. Yo.
Welcome back to Heartbeat Radio and Podcast. I am your host, Cindi Bright. We are back on the second half. Joy Stanford and I are having the Voice of the Black Women conversation tonight. We were talking about, right before the break, we were talking about hustle, about how much hustle it is. I think we were talking about to be self-employed, but in general, the hustle that's required to keep everything together. And I think when we were talking a little bit about the person you don't follow, about the tone-deaf comments about we all need to work harder, to women like me and you who work. I work a lot of hours a day and always have. And I know my listeners, I know Carol Lee, who's listening to this, can attest to this because I used to work with her. So we work a lot of hours. We do a lot to keep it all together. And yet there's such little value placed on the life of a Black woman. Let's talk about Brittany Griner. Are you following?
Oh, I am. I saw Congressman Allred. Allred he said she's okay, but I'm like, if nobody's seen or heard from her and her wife can't get a hold of her, then does the State Department know something we don't know? And why are they still holding her?
You want to know how upset I am about that, because I mean, any country can look at our country and see the visceral racism and the hatred towards Black people in this country. Like, it's only the people inside this country that don't acknowledge racism, but everyone sees how we're treated. And so,
yes,
another country can look and know that they can take a hostage. She's probably a political hostage, and hold her, because they know that the value placed on her life will be so much lower than it was if it were, maybe Sue Bird or Lauren Jackson, one of the other. I question what would happen if it were Sue Bird in custody.
Well, why did she have to go to another country
let's
to make $1 million? To make $1 million?
Yes, to be able to make a million. And Brittany Griner, I don't know if anybody, like, I've heard a lot of people say I've never heard of her. Well, I'm a baller, so I've watched Brittany Griner for years play. And so Brittany can outball any dude out there, let's just say it. And
yes, she can.
She can outball them. And yet all the women in WNBA are, most of them are having to take other jobs across the country to be able to break even, or even be able to get anywhere near what the men are paying. Now, I've heard all the arguments about, it's not revenue generating. It's not a revenue generating sport. They don't have the money to pay.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'm sorry. I'm a soccer mom, and my girls, my ladies, were playing at Cheney Stadium in Tacoma for the past, I don't know how many years. Now they just now have been invited to come play at Lumen Field. Okay. It's like, really? Thank you. They're the ones winning. They are the ones winning. There we go. There we go.
There's Brittany.
Yep. That girl can ball. Now, I like watching her play basketball. I do like watching her play ball.
Me too.
Yeah.
The other woman, not to go into my sports, because I could actually do a sports show. I could give Little Line Sports a run for their money, just so if Granville is listening to this. I almost commented, because I listened. They actually did a really great show earlier last week about Russell Wilson's trade. And so I tuned in to it, and I almost went in with my female version, but I decided not to, and just to listen to what they were having to say.
That's so funny.
But I still love to watch Becky Hammon too. Do you know who Becky Hammon is? She's she used to play, she's now I think she's the assistant coach now at
I was just going to say.
Yeah,
that's how I know that name. Yeah.
Becky was badass. I used to love watching her play too. And Lauren Jackson. In fact, we had season tickets to the Storm many years ago when Lauren was playing, and we were sitting right behind the bench when the Storm won the championship. So
nice.
Feet in basketball. Didn't mean to
get we got some fabulous coaches, college coaches though. Yeah. That again, I don't understand. I mean, I do, but it's ridiculous that they have to go out of this country to make $1 million because you all, whoever powers that be, don't think that they're worth that much here in their own country. I think
just
that's
saying
shameful.
Prayers that she is brought back safely.
Yes.
We can look at the patterns of the Breonna Taylors, the Sandra Bland's. Like, we can look and know how this country feels about Black women. And so not hard to.
Don't even talk about the fact that we're not even letting people of color on the trains to get out of Russia.
Oh my God.
I was like, what do you mean? Whoa. No, it's the Russians, it's the Ukrainians first. And I'm like, wouldn't it just be everybody who's in the country you're trying to get out? Not that I was
all programmed that any of us that have melanin in our skin are less than. That's a programming that has been just instilled in people's heads. And so there's little value. And the fact that we still don't acknowledge that or talk around it. We talk around it. We dance over it. We pretend that we're doing something about it. But have we actually really embraced this problem? Because I would argue we haven't. We have not. We haven't embraced it.
Isn't that what we were talking about with the young men last week? Do we have hope that things will change? Another subject that you wanted to talk about this week was the Don Lemon, and I only had been following that very briefly until you said, check that out, and I was like, whoa. Okay, so since Chris Cuomo isn't failing up that new concept, failing up, I'm going to run the bus over my supposed friends in order to get my $125 million.
Is that, I just had you read, I was like, just look into it because I wonder what you thought about it.
I was like, first of all, don't throw me under the bus if I'm your friend. Okay. And we're not talking about me. We're talking about you. If the company has already moved on from whatever transgressions these other folks have had, not that I'm saying that that's right, but right now.
But here's the thing. Like, again, I don't have the details of what went down. I think we just lost Joy. So I'm going to sit here looking at my own self in the camera, hoping that she'll come back on. If I have any listeners who want to comment about what we're just talking about, if you found or followed the Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon story, they were doing the handoff from the 6 o'clock to the 7 o'clock hour on CNN. And this chaos around the Governor Cuomo's resignation out of New York, and Chris then subsequently being accused of using improper relationships or whatever that was inside of an organization. I found it fascinating, and I found it fascinating that I don't want to quote what Don Lemon said, but it was something to the effect that, oh, here we go. Yeah, Chris Cuomo's going for his awkward throw to Don Lemon. Like, something just feels so off with this. And I don't understand how, particularly friends. And so this is kind of thank you, Daniel, for showing some of these photos. This is kind of the issue that I think we're talking about, which is like, what are friends really? Like, because even if there's this kind of chaos going on, do you publicly throw them under the bus like that? Or is that something you handle behind the scenes with your friends? And then I noticed that Don Lemon was given CNN is now doing an app. So CNN Plus, so they're now selling it and they're giving him platform there. And so the question becomes, was that done out of, to leverage themselves into more power? I don't know the answer to that, and I think highly of both of those men. So it's so tough for me to watch that play out in the press like that. And then the other thing is, can we actually really trust the media, what they're actually portraying or what they're saying? Some of these reports. So I don't know. I was
really surprised that Chris Cuomo went that route. I'm really hoping that was just like, this is the way we're going to go. My attorney suggested it, not me.
Let me give you a contrasting issue in my own life that makes me question how they portrayed it. Because, back a decade ago now, when I had my own lawsuit and trial, and I don't want to regurgitate a lot of this. All of the above. But there was one of the pieces of narrative that the company tried to portray about me is they said that I abused my authority because I was a director of HR, and they said that I had given a raise to somebody unethically, or whatever the term was that they use.
Wow.
So I explained what I did, and I explained the fact that I was the head of HR, and it is my responsibility to look at pay equity and different things within my business. The fact that I had to give somebody a $30,000 raise who happened to be a Black man was indicative of the problems that I saw there. And on top of it, there's an approval process that I have to go through. So not only did I approve it, the CEO approved it, and the CFO approved it. And the CFO in this case is the one whose behavior is at question right now, but you're targeting me. I'm sharing that example because we don't really know what Chris did. I mean, he is a journalist. He has
Right.
access to information. He has power that he can use as a journalist. That's how he's been able to be effective and get people to come onto his show and talk with him. So maybe it's just that he operated within the same vein that he normally would, and they are portraying it a certain way to take
Right.
So you see how you can't, it's hard to say that. And look, if that were my sister or my brother who was the governor of New York and my brother or sister needed help, I would help them. I mean, I just wouldn't say, I'm not going to help my, brother when this attack is coming out. I wouldn't turn my back on my own flesh and blood. And so it feels unreasonable the way that all of this has been handled. But that's I'm so far outside and so far removed and don't know any of the information inside. So that was just my perspective on it. And because I feel that all of the sanctuary cities are all under attack. And so
right.
they're coming after all the people that are out speaking truth.
Right. Right.
Our family that have been speaking truth.
I don't agree with the fact that I think Andrew Cuomo is going to run again.
I'd vote for him.
I'm not sure I would.
I like him. I do.
I liked him, and I liked how he handled the COVID-19, but there's again too many women coming out with the same story. Now, what they said was the victims were credible, but the attorney said we cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't have any proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
So that's not what his attorney came out and did a very public. He posted it, and I listened to it, and so her perspective on all of it is that they aren't credible. They aren't credible women.
And on the other side, on the prosecutor's side, he's saying we're not going to, but I said, but you didn't take the case. You're not going to take the case. So what are you going to do? Whoa, we think their stories are credible, but we can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's just, I'm like,
it's so damn dicey because the one thing I would never do is shame a woman who is bringing forth
that's right.
Any action that
that's right
has put her in harm's way. I do not give a pass to that. And if that in fact happened, I don't condone that.
That's right.
But I would also say that there's many of them who, when they don't get their way, we've watched their behavior. They are studies. When they don't get their way, they come out in drones to take down people that they can't take from. And so when people are in positions of power, like him, he's a single man, with a lot of power. He's charming and handsome. I can see some of these scenarios playing out around rejection. And, so.
Not saying that's what's happening, but I am saying I understand.
I understand it, yes. So there's somewhere in between all of this lies the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
And does somebody's life deserve to be taken down?
Ruined, right.
Over it.
Because of this. Yes.
Yeah. So back to the, Dawn and Chris thing, I don't know if that could even be rectified. Like I don't
think so.
Yeah, my friend did that. Well, my friend did do that to me, and it cost me my job and my career and my house and everything. It cost me dearly over somebody tearing you down. Yeah.
And I think we've both experienced people who we thought were friends turning out not to be friends. And standing there looking like, what happened? What did I say something? Did I do something? No, it's just, that was their way. And so I think, if I were Don Lemon, I don't know. My son likes to say, everybody deserves a second chance. Of course, my son gives people a third and fourth chance. I can't do that. I could do it once.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, and you've helped me through my own trying to grieve a loss of somebody I thought was my friend too, and that is tough to accept. That
is.
Those are the killers.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard place to
It
be.
takes days to get over that because you're what is it? It's the stories that you're telling in your head.
Yes.
What was said, done. I'm a solid person.
Well, you've broken up really bad, Joy.
Internet is.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I think what you're talking about, you're frozen on screen, so okay, I can barely see you there. I think what you were trying to say is that the pain of it's almost like I think Carolee just made that comment. It is such a felt loss when that happens. It is, and it is grief.
Yes.
And so when you have this grief of some people that you trust, and even in my my trial that I went through, this was my friend who had stayed in my home, had stayed with me, had, ate dinner together and, cried together, like had a lot of, we were very, very close. And to have that sort of betrayal of somebody close to you is so damaging that I don't even know how it's taken me years to get over it. And I would say that writing my book is what helped heal me, because I was finally, actually the book that you all have, or if you don't have, that you're about to buy, if you read my book, that is version 15 of the book. Version 1 that I had done was very difficult. I was full of rage and anger because I couldn't believe somebody would take from me that way and then hurt me. And she wasn't the first person that's ever betrayed me, but she's the last person that I will allow to let that happen. And as tough as that is to say openly, because people would ask me about, Cindi, is your heart? My therapist asked me, is your heart hard? And I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Why do you ask?
Did you not just see what happened to me?
But it's tough. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a tough space to be, to grieve over friendships. And yes, I'm just looking at Carol's.
That would make a great show too. Friends who you've been friends with for more than 20 years.
Well, one of them's on screen right now, Carolee Regis. If you do start to question yourself, can we put that comment back up? Danielle? Yes. That you do, when somebody hurts you that deep, you start to ask yourself, what is it I've continued. What is it I'm doing other than breathing and existing? What is it that what would make somebody do that? In the recent issue you and I were referring to, I have to defend my business. This issues were impacting my revenue. They were impacting my stability. And so I could not just sit on the sidelines and allow things to continue to happen. And so, and I asked or made comments about it. And I like that comment, when people do change us due to their behavior. Yes. And how do we not let them destroy us longer term? Like, that letting go of that pain is the harder challenge in all of this. So
I also believe us running for office changed us, because there's just this level of trust that I don't have anymore, where I used to be very trusting, and there's a level now that I don't, and my circle got real small. So
say more about that. You're talking about
it got small after the election, but it got even smaller after the pandemic. So what does that say? I'm like, I think you don't know what somebody's going to take that you say and go take it and use it against you, or say that you said this to someone else. You just don't know. And there's just this level of trust that I don't have anymore. I'm almost the other way. Like, I don't trust, period. So, and I think that also happens now when we talked about earlier, where I send text messages and I don't hear back. I'm like, oh, what's going on? Why am I being ghosted? I thought we were friends. Okay, maybe not, so.
Yeah, I don't think there's any excuse. I mean, I have let some text messages slip, but people that I care about, I at least say I'll call you tomorrow, or I'll get with you, or text me, or sometimes I send voice messages in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. I just let people know, but it's tough. And so
It is.
back to this whole broader conversation we've been having on us as Black women. So not
Women.
the society that we live in. I mean, this is a genuine question. I asked my therapist, I'm like, how am I supposed to be different in a society? Like, what are my coping mechanisms? It's a society that treats us like this. What do I do? Okay, I can take deep breaths. I exercise every day pretty much, but how do I navigate in this kind of space? How do I let go of allowing other people's harm to, again, my TED talk, right? I am not who you think I am. You are who you think I am. And so if people don't have the ability to even see themselves, and the only thing they want to do is blame, treat poorly, like that has become so commonplace. I almost don't know how to help people anymore, even navigate these spaces, because I don't feel equipped to navigate them a lot.
Right. But I think if we keep talking about it, I think when I got cut off, I was saying that make a great show is to have people on who've been friends for 20 years, who've been friends for 30, 40 years, women of color, white women, Black women, who you trust, who know what, like my one friend says, who knows where the bodies are buried? Not really. In case the police officers, not really, but that level of trust and just loyalty. I think that'd make a great show, just to have folks come on.
I think that's actually a great idea. We should plan that.
Yeah,
Get
we
our
should.
friends on with that.
For summertime.
Yeah, that's like a great idea. Gwen just posted a comment. She said, "Truth tellers are hated." Isn't that the truth?
Oh,
The people who tell the truth are always the ones hated, and the fake lying people are often what is the word?
Relieved.
Yeah. I had somebody shared this analogy with me the other day, and I thought it was a powerful analogy to this point about the truth tellers. They said, when you're somebody who has evolved, and I believe the term they used was awakened. If you think about going to a party and everybody's drunk, you're in there having a good old time with everybody. You see things the way everybody else does, who's happy and jovial. But if you go into a place where somebody's partying and you're sober, you see things and behaviors that are so outside of what you would consider like your normal. And so they said, Cindy,
the lens is different.
Then they said, Cindy, you're the sober one. And so I was like, whew, that is heavy, but it's the truth.
That is.
I don't drink from the Kool-Aid of popularity, and I don't follow the same track of people. I stand in my own skin and do what I do on my own. And because and that is all rooted in rejection of myself as a child from both races of people, for having the white mom and for having the Black father. And so I separated myself. I would have been a loner most of my life because of that kind of rejection. And so I'm the sober one who doesn't feel the need to be popular in the circles of, how come we haven't heard from you before? Well, I don't know. So isn't that just an interesting analogy?
It's a great analogy, though. It's the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because your lens is different when you're sober.
Yeah.
Than if you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yes.
And
I'm glad we had a chance to talk today. Usually we spend such a good amount of time on some of the other topics. Our next couple weeks we do have booked. Let me tell our listeners about the shows over the next couple of weeks, because we're almost out of time here. Next, in the pandemic, so it was like June of 2020, I brought on and I had a conversation about, yes, Gwen, it is Women International
Women's Day. Yeah.
I'm bringing men on next week. So I I had 3 white men who do, I'll say diversity or racial equity work. They came on and did a show in June of 2020. I'm bringing the 3 of them back next week to hear what their lives have been like and what the journey has been over them stepping into these battles too. So we'll have Glenn Block, Gabe Grant, and Noah Prince coming back on with us next week. The following week, we've got Paula Boggs. And all I want you to do is Google Paula Boggs, Boggs. She's a big timer, and she is going to come. She's many things, so I don't want to just put one subject over her, but she is a former executive out of Starbucks, and she has some powerful stories that she's going to share with us. So that's our next 2-week shows. Look, we're at the hour. For those of us who are getting ready to watch Sisters on BET at 9 o'clock, I know you aren't, Joy, but that's my show. So everybody who joined us tonight, thank you for joining the show and engaging with us as always, listening to us. There's so much to talk about. Yes, as
Black women. Yes.
So everybody have a good week, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Okay. Good night, everybody.
That up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.